Hello, welcome to another wonderful episode of Crossing the Line podcast. And as always, my name is Oliver Rednall, and joining me, my partner in crime, Charlie Colligard.
Hello.
And today we are incredibly excited to welcome a professional we've been talking about for a very long time. She's worked initially as a stunt performer before becoming a coordinator, a horse master across film and TV shows such as Shaun of the Dead, Doctor Who, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, one of my personal favourites, Harry Potter, Star Wars, and that's pretty much as I can fit into one breath. The list goes on and is an extraordinary Abbi Collins. Thank you for coming to speak to us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure.
No, you're very welcome. Your stunt performer is someone we wanted to get on the show for a long time because I think people forget, and there's a lot of talk about when actors do their own stunts and things like that, but it's quite a complex role, and it can be very dangerous at times and requires a lot of skill and discipline. How is it you came to become a stunt performer and stunt coordinator?
Well, it's an interesting story, really. I didn't know anything about the profession, and I had no involvement in film or TV. I had a riding school. I'm a qualified riding instructor. But after I had the riding school, and sometimes during the same period, I worked as a photographic model. And I was working with a photographer one day who I always got on very well with. And we were having a chat after the session. And he said, "Is this what you want to do for the rest of your life now, work as a model?" And I said, "God, no, I shouldn't say this to you because you employ me, but it isn't. I know there's something out there for me, but I just can't put my finger on it, but this is not it." And I'd had the riding school for years, and I'm an outdoor person, and I'm used to being hands-on. So the modeling for me personally just didn't fulfill anything. It paid the bills, and I was a single mum at the time, so I had to find something, and it appeared I was photogenic. So that's how I got into that. And he said, just out of the blue, "Well, why don't you use all those sports you do?" Because I have them all on my modeling card. Most models have hands, hair, nails, teeth. I had windsurfing, jet skiing, show jumping, water skiing, hang gliding. I had lots of sports on mine.
Bloody hell.
And as it happened, I did do a modeling session on a windsurfer, so it was worth putting them down. And he said, "Why don't you use those to earn you a living?" I said, "Well, I'd love to, but doing what?" And he said, "Stunts." And all I could think in my head was, "Oh my God, oh my God." And I said, "Well, yes, that sounds perfect for me." And he said, "Well, I have a friend who is a stuntman," and that was a stuntman called Roy Allon, because I was living in the outskirts of Leeds then, and that's where Roy was from. And he was a friend of his. That's how he knew about the industry. And sadly, Roy's no longer with us now. So he put me in touch with Roy. I went to see him the very next day and started my training immediately. And it took me 3 years. And that was it. He was the person that dropped out of the sky and said, "You should be doing this." I'd be, forever grateful to him. And years later, because I gave up modeling after my training, about 5 years into becoming a stunt performer, Roy took me back to see him one day. On our lunch break, we were working close by. Roy, the stunt coordinator, had employed me. And he said, "I need to take you to see someone." And we went back to see this guy, Richard Ross, the photographer's name. And he said, "Tell Richard what you're doing now." And I said, "It's all down to you." If he had, I don't know what I would have been doing, funnily enough, if he hadn't have mentioned that. But he did, so I'm forever grateful.
That sounds like an absolute dream, like just jumping into it like that. So when you say it took 3 years, is it like an apprenticeship you do with a stuntman? Is it, he just teaches you the ropes? Obviously, that's a crude way of putting it.
It's what happens is, we have a stunt register called the British Stunt Register, and that we have a fabulous website. So anybody listening to this that wants any information should go to the britishstuntregister.com. I think it's .com. I'm sure it is, if not .co.uk, but they'll find it. And look on the website. You have to get to a high level in 6 different sporting disciplines. And now we also require potential stuntmen and women to do a 10-day acting course so that they have some basic training to give a performance. And also live shows They have to work as an extra, and they also have to have been involved with live shows. Working as an extra gives them protocol for on-set experience. But the sports, it's tough. It's really hard to get to the level, but the requirements are getting greater and greater over the years. The directors want bigger and better stunts. And we believe it will make our industry safer by having better qualified performers. So you have to be hungry to want this as your profession and be passionate. You have to be driven. You have to be, I would say, you have to be quite competitive. That creates the drive that you need. And disciplined and tough, quite athletic, really. You need to be. The sports, the average ones that people do, the general ones, should I say, are scuba diving. You have to get to instructor level, rock climbing instructor level. There are various others. You have to have a martial art. You need to be the level below black belt. My son is a stuntman and he's into his 4th year now, and I supported him through his training financially, so he was lucky in that respect. But it's not impossible to do. Lots of guys do it and they find a way through it. It took my son 4 years, so it took me 3 years all those years ago, but I would say now it's between 4 and 5 years because the requirements have increased from when I did it, which was started 37 years ago. So 34 years now I've been in the industry. I think it's the right thing that it's harder, because we really, really need the cream of performers. As I say, everything's changing, it's developing. The industry is in the UK has really, really taken off. So we need more stunt performers. We certainly need more black and mixed race stunt performers. So any of you guys that are listening to this, please get in touch with the BSR and start training, because we have very few on our stunt register. I think we have about 450 people in the UK, and I think we only have, would you believe, about 20, maybe 25. But we've only got one black girl and one mixed race girl, so that tells you everything you need to know. We need more, so there's work out there for you guys. So get training.
That's one of each on the entire register.
So I think we've got the 2 girls, yes, and the guys, I think we have about 18 or 20 or maybe 22 guys, and that's it, maximum out of 450 people. So it's low, very low.
Abbi, you half mentioned it partway through that about having 6 different disciplines that people would have to train in to come through. Do certain things have different weights? So you mentioned you need to have a martial art and you need to do scuba diving. If somebody is a scuba diver and let's say is also a show horse rider or something like that, is the horse riding less necessary than the martial arts, or do you weight them differently?
No, you do have to have a martial art, but the others are your choice. And I think you have about, I can't say for sure. I was going to say don't quote me, but I'm quoting myself. I think there's about 12 different choices, and you have to, maybe 14, you have to get 6. So you could go to Silverstone and do a stunt driving course over a period of 12 months. They put one of those together for us. Horse riding, if you whatever you choose, it's good to be across the board. So motorbikes, cars, horse riding, obviously scuba diving, rock climbing, gymnastics is always a good one to have, because you definitely need physical ability and agility throughout your years as a performer. But if you, for example, I was a qualified riding instructor when I started my training, so I had more than the requirement in the horse riding section or the riding section, and so I was able to just use that qualification. I didn't need to train for that. So if you have a specialist skill, that's great. And if you have one, say you've got a particular Olympic skill that's exceptional. So it could be a downhill ski racer or a competitive snowboarder, and you've been to the Olympics or you're at a international level. We have a category that's miscellaneous. So that means that could be one of your skills in the miscellaneous if it's not within the choice of those that you have to choose the 6 from. So we want specialists on our register. I think there's 2 that are specialists in parkour, free running. So that's not actually, I don't think that's one of the choices of sports at the moment, but I think it might be, because everything's evolving. We're looking at different options for lots and lots of things. But yes, it's all there, as I say, online. And the more skilled you are, the better. So,
and out of all your skill set, which one do you think generally dominates the amount of work that you get, that you find yourself, is it horse riding or any of the others?
Well, for me, during the 25-ish years that I was a performer, it was horses and vehicle stunts. I seem to have a particular skill for precision driving, and I did a lot of that. That was one of my specialized skills, and the horse riding, because horses are my background. So I've been riding since I was 9, and competitive show jumping and cross country and so on. But I still did all the others, because there's no point in being a specialist at one unless you've got another job. And then we just bring you in as and when we require you, because you would limit the amount of work that you got. So you really need to be an across-the-board performer. So you have to be, my 2 specialist skills were great, and I thoroughly loved and enjoyed doing them. But I also did full burns and high falls, motorbike laydowns, fights, stunts in water, as I say, to be across the board and fill up the weeks and the days.
So those stunts that you just mentioned there, are those things that you learned during your training, or are some of those things that you learned on the job?
Well, yeah, very good point. It is, once you've got those skills, unfortunately, it is on the job training, which is not ideal. Having said that, we have got a handful of guys that put together training courses. So you can do a high falls training day, an air ram, which is a hydraulic piston that fires you up in the air. Those sort of training days, a guy called Tony Christian does. And we have a couple of guys, Paul Bailey and Lloyd Bass, they do stunt driving courses. So you can spend a day with them. It's always good to improve your ability. And, those driving skills really that we will all use at some point or other, I think, on the stunt register. So the more you can improve that, the better.
And out of all in your career, have you sustained any injuries at all from any of the stunts that you've been involved in?
Throughout the 34 years, I think, I'm touching wood gently, I had 3, other than a few little bumps and bruises, but which is to be expected. The 3 were, one day I had to, in this shot, I turned a car over from a ramp, and then I crawl out of the car, and the car explodes behind me, and it's meant to set me, well, the car explosion doesn't set me on fire. I have a little detonator in my hand that triggered the fire on my back that was already in place. And from the camera angle, it's meant to look like it came from the explosion from the car. But what actually happened was the explosion from the car completely engulfed me in a fireball, which was not meant to happen. And it stripped the skin off my right hand, a little bit on my face and a little bit on my foot. And it would look great on the show reel. But had I have needed to have being engulfed in a fireball, I would have had more protection on me, but that wasn't meant to happen, so I didn't, and therefore I got burned. The explosion in the car was just too big. That was down to special effects. They didn't quite get it right. And when the people that we work with get it wrong. We are the ones on the receiving end. So generally, we know our ability and we do it to the best of our ability, the performance. But when we're working with others, i.e. wire riggers, special effects, with on the receiving end, if something goes wrong, it's usually us that, we take the brunt of it. The other one was an actor was meant to push me off a balcony, and I was to land on boxes, cardboard boxes, which are fabulous for landing on from a fall because they break your fall gradually. But he wasn't actually meant to touch me. He was meant to go forwards and stop as he got to just before my chest, and I take myself backwards so I'm in control of the fall. And I guess the adrenaline and the nerves got to him a little bit, and he pushed me hard. So I rotated where I wouldn't have normally. I would have stayed on my back and fallen and landed on my back. And it wasn't high enough for me to go all the way around and rotate 360 back onto my back. So I landed on my feet. Had that have been an airbag, I probably would have broken my hips and my legs. It would have been very bad because they're not really forgiving. But I went into the boxes. I damaged the ligaments in one ankle and on my knee on the other leg. So that was pretty bad. And the worst thing about that, I mean, the actor didn't do it on purpose, and I felt so sorry for him because the shot continued after I landed on the boxes. The camera then was still looking up at him for his reaction, having pushed me to my death over this balcony. And I was trying to be really quiet because I knew no one had said cut, so we were still turning. And he was acting as pleased that he'd thrown me from this balcony, but horrified also because he could see me writhing about in agony. So, and then eventually it was a cut, and it was ow. Anyway, that was the other one. And then the third one was another fall onto boxes, but I was working with an inexperienced stunt coordinator, and he didn't tie the boxes together, and we put rope around the outside of them all, so you make a solid mass unit with a box rig. And he didn't, and I was inexperienced. It was my very early days, so I didn't know any different because it is on-the-job training. So the new guys and the performers rely on the stunt coordinator to sort of nurture them and teach them and coach them in all these sort of things, how to build a box rig, how to fall, how to do all the various stunts that you're doing. That's the coordinator's job, in my opinion, is to help these guys along. So I didn't know any different. Luckily, it was only about 12 feet, and I jumped forwards, turned, landed on my back on the boxes, and they all scattered, and I went straight through and hit the concrete floor. He hadn't even put a crash mat under them, which when I build a box rig, I always put mats under, just in case they go all the way through and bottom out slightly. They shouldn't. You would have enough layers to make sure that doesn't happen. But it's an extra, a belt and braces, extra piece of safety. And luckily, I didn't break anything, but I badly bruised my lower back and had issues a lot, really, over the years with that, which I think was as a result of that, until I discovered Pilates and strengthened my core. That helped my back enormously. But then I think it was only about 7 years ago, I had surgery for a prolapsed disc. And the surgeon said, it isn't something you just did in the last year or just recently. It's an accumulation of your body taking impact over the years. So we do pay the price eventually for doing what we love. We get well paid for it, but we need to, because we might have to see a physio. We might be out of work for a prolapsed disc as a result of the work that we've done over the years. So yes, we definitely deserve it.
You were talking about discipline and concentration and things, and that certainly shows, like you said about the second injury you had when you were pushed and you knew the cameras were still rolling. So even though you were quite badly injured, you maintained your composure so you could get the shot. So that shows a lot of dedication, like you were talking about, and real experience there. Yes,
absolutely. But we're so trained and tuned in to the shot isn't over until you hear the word cut. So, and then there's the question, are you happy to go again? Obviously, in that case, I didn't go again. But even if we've taken a little knock, we usually say, yes, absolutely. And then we go on to take two. But if it's anything more serious, we can't. But then look at the example of Tom Cruise.
I was literally about to say this on the Mission Impossible film.
Oh, my goodness. He's amazing, isn't he? I mean, he's physically amazing. And some actors, not all of them, but some say, oh, yes, I do all my own stunts or most of my own stunts. And they don't generally. But he does. I know there are, a few that he wouldn't do because they couldn't take that risk. But most of the time he does. He's incredible. But yeah, he had a broken ankle and he still got up the top of onto the roof of the building and staggered a few feet. There you go. Yeah, professionalism and dedication, as you say.
There is the video of that where you actually see the leg snap as it hits the side of the building. It is an incredible one, and I was going to say exactly that example.
I think I saw it on Graham Norton, and I think he showed it when Tom Cruise was on, and he kept showing it. I was like, oh my god, it was just cringeworthy. It was awful, but yeah.
Well, you mentioned it briefly in there, but I was going to say, how do you feel about actors doing their own stunts? You have examples like Tom Cruise where he does pretty much all of it, and you yourself says he does, apart from the very worst ones. Do you feel that is a good thing, or do you think it should be left to the stunt professionals?
I think it depends on the actor. I think Tom Cruise would have been a stuntman had he not have been an actor. He flies, he rides motorbikes, he rock climbs, he does so many things, and he's very, very capable. So, but he's very rare. Most actors are happy to have their stunt double do the physical action for them. Some of them ask if they can do it, and I personally, as a stunt coordinator, would let them up to a point. And then there's a line that I don't think they should cross because it's too risky. The insurance company wouldn't be happy, and the producers would be incredibly nervous, and they might think that I was being negligent by suggesting that they do it. So safety obviously has to be paramount. But interesting you asked that question. I've just been away on a film in Scotland for 6 weeks, and it would have been very difficult to double the actors in it. Although I did suggest that we had a stunt double for one of the males and one of the females. And the producer said to me before we went up there, is there any way you think you can get the performance and the physical action from the actual actors rather than doubles? Obviously, cost is always an issue, but because of we were in a bubble. So because of the isolating in a bubble in the hotel, the cast and crew, we all stayed together. Nobody came or went. We went to location. We came back to the hotel. All the hotel staff lived in the hotel also to keep us safe. And it worked. And no one got COVID, and we got everything we needed to get. So they said, is it possible? And I thought about it and said, yes. And I did everything with the actors. And I said to the director and the producers, if you give me actors that are very physical and agile and that you think they're capable, I gave them a few little exercises, little situations and scenarios to put them through at the casting to decide on this. Then I said, I think I'll be able to work with them. There were no major stunts, by the way. There were no car turnovers. That wouldn't have worked. There were no vehicles. There was nothing in it. I can't say too much about it because that was another NDA, and we're not supposed to talk about the story. But some of it was quite tricky. And they did it. I got them to do it all. I get a lot of pleasure and satisfaction from working with actors, particularly in fight sequences, to bring them out of their comfort zone. And so they achieve something that they never thought they would ever do is fabulous for them and fabulous for me. And obviously, you know, the camera's on the money. Then we're not having to hide a double wearing a wig. We can shoot on the actual actor, so that's better all round. So I'd have to take a view of the question you asked me on each individual situation, but I would always love to use the actors if possible.
Is there a stunt that you have that is a favourite of yours that like you haven't done, that you've seen in an old film or a film that you haven't worked on that you would like to have done?
There is. Immediately, I can tell you what that is. I always wanted to drive a car either out of a car showroom or into a car showroom through the window.
That's very specific.
Yeah, just to smash through the glass, either in or out. I guess out would have been a good one. For some reason, I don't know why, that's something I always wanted to do and hoped I would and never did. So sadly, I seem to have done most other things, but not that.
What's the minimum sort of requirement for it to bring in a stunt coordinator or a stunt performer? Because sometimes I've seen things where people have just fallen over and that needs to be coordinated properly so the person is safe. And if they need to do it 15 times for a take, is there sort of a minimum requirement where a stunt coordinator will be needed?
Well, anything physical at all. I mean, I get brought in sometimes on jobs and I might just be there for the day on a TV show or something. And it's, you know, the actor drops down onto their knees. And I think, well, there must be more to it than that. So, and I get there and they say, no, just drops down onto his knees. Say, you sure you needed me for that? Well, he needs to have knee pads on and the costume department won't supply them because they don't feel it's their job to do that, which would be quite right. So you need to supply them. So you need to put them on. So we need you here to do it. But you know, in a way, that's a good thing because things can develop. It could be, yes, the director might say on the day, yes, he drops down onto his knees, but then I want someone to kick him in the back and push him down onto his front. So therefore, then it starts to escalate. And there's, you know, I would say, yes, you go to give him a push and the other guy throws himself forward and it looks like he's kicked him really hard when actually he hasn't. The force has come from the guy on his knees. And then I'd give him probably a chest pad and show him how to fall down forwards without smashing his face on the ground. So they are very good these days at covering themselves. So, and you know, you say falling over. You could fall over and you could land badly. Instead of landing on your forearm with a forearm pad on it, you could put your hand down and damage your wrist or sprain your wrist. So anything physical at all, they generally bring us in. And I think that's the right thing. They just want to cover themselves also. And the insurance company, I think, are happier if they do that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I mean. I mean, it can be the simplest action itself that can cause injury. Like, you know, picking something up could hurt your back or something like that, you know, if it's not done properly. So it's certainly something to be aware of and appreciated as well. Like even now when I'm watching things, I'll see something really simple happen and I'm like, maybe the effort that went into that was a lot greater than the audience realizes.
Well, as an example, I worked on a long-running show for about 5 years. I better not say what it was because the poor line producer then, if he ever watches this, and he's a friend of mine, he won't be too happy that I dubbed him in it. But
we'll have him on next week and we'll interview him.
Yeah. And he might say, that bloody Abbi Collins. And it was a headbutt. And that one actress to another. And he said to me, do we really need you to come in to do this? Because he was trying to save money, being the line producer. And he said, because we've had so many headbutts on this show that, you know, surely they know how to do it. You've shown them how to do it. They'll be fine. So I said, no, I think you need me to come in. Absolutely. And he said, well, I don't think we do. Honestly, I don't. So I said, okay. Do it without me then, because we had a long conversation about it, and he said, I think it'll be fine, honestly. So I said, I think I should be in, but you do it. Anyway, what happened is the actress headbutted the other, and somehow a tooth or her teeth got embedded in the other actor's forehead somewhere here, because she went too close, or the other actor maybe moved. So, you have to rehearse these things, and you have to start slowly, build up to them, show them exactly how to be precise, and they've got to be consistent at them, because you'll probably do more than one take for sure. And he rang me and he said, "Oh my God, you were so right. Now we had an accident." And I said, "Well, what can I say?" So it proved a point, didn't it? But sadly, the actress suffered because of it. But there's a perfect example.
How long will a fight sequence, or what is the longest fight sequence you've ever had to rehearse for? Because I imagine some things, with real coordinated martial arts in them that look just visually beautiful as well being performed. How long would have you worked on things like that? Like, how long will it take to choreograph a single fight?
On a film, they'll probably have a whole week, if not 2 weeks, to choreograph a big fight sequence involving various stunt men or women and actors. If it's something, I say simple, it's never simple, but if it's somebody having a scuffle in a pub and then they grab them and throw them out, that might take, I'd probably do that in half an hour or something. And then, but I had one that involved martial arts. I needed one guy to be in the middle of a circle of, I think we had 8 other guys, 8 or 9. So there were 9 or 10 of these martial artists all together, and they were all stuntmen. And we had a whole day at a rehearsal studio to rehearse that. But the guy that played the main guy in the middle, he was amazing. He had to remember 9 other routines. So each of the other guys had only their own one to remember. And they took it in turns going up to him. So that they had a fight with him. He defeated them. They ended up on the floor or walking away. Then another one came at him. And that was what they wanted for the show. And that, I think we spent a whole morning shooting it, but I had a whole day of rehearsing it with them. And that's fabulous. The more you can have rehearsal time, the better. When I say half an hour, that will be half an hour for a TV show where there's very little time. They're trying to get through the shots and they haven't got enough time to do them. But I've seem to have got pretty good at putting something together quite quickly. And also, if I've got great actors that are very physical and might have done something like that in the past, that's even better. If I have stuntmen involved in the sequence, that's even better, because they're trained to learn and pick up routines very quickly anyway, and they've got it all there to start with. So it would take a bit longer with an actor, but shouldn't take quite as long with the stunt performance. And they bring more to the table with ideas as well, which is always fabulous.
And would you say that is the biggest difference between working on a feature film and a TV show, is simply the amount of time you have to spend on sorting out the stunts?
Yes, if it's a very low budget film, then often they don't have much money or much time either. But the bigger films, yes, the big budget films, it's I've never coordinated any of those, but it would be a dream, because I would have a lot more time, a lot more financial resources to bring in more people.
Sure.
Into the sequence, whereas TV is tough. It's quick, it's punchy. You've got to think on your feet. Suddenly you're on set. The director might say, actually, could he do such and such also and add that part in? So so then you've got 5-10 minutes to add that little piece into the sequence, or bring in some crash mats quickly, get some pads on the actor, and do it. It's very, very, very fast paced, and you generally would never have an assistant. So I would have to do my mostly low budget films and TV.
Yeah. We've got a few minutes left, Abbi, and my brother's going to kill me if I don't ask you this, because I grew up with the film Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and I saw that you'd worked on that. Was it the horse riding that you did on that? Can you speak just very briefly about that a little?
No, the Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I was in the burning house, the tree house, when it was
Really?
on fire. I was rescued in the fire, from the fire, and I know you love that film, you said, and it was a great film to work on. Plus I did other bits and pieces, and I can't recall every one now, but then when they were firing the burning arrows, there was a lot of different sequences that I was involved in with a few other girls and lots of guys. But my favorite, I'll just say quickly, was Braveheart. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I was doubling Catherine McCormack, and I got hit with the spear and knocked off the back of the horse when she's trying to escape, and he tells her to meet him at the grove, smacks the horse's bum, she goes galloping off through the village, and then one of the soldiers steps out and whacks her with the spear in the chest and knocks her off the horse. So that was me.
Fantastic.
And I loved working with Mel Gibson. It was that's one of my claim to fame. It's a favorite of mine.
Fantastic. And one of the final questions we ask each guest is there a film or films that you're ashamed that you've never seen?
I don't think so. I think I've seen everything that I wanted to see, because I am a fan of relaxing and watching movies. Luckily, so is my husband. So, but I used to go to the cinema on my own for many, many years before I had a partner or when I was single. And I would just sit in the cinema on my own night after night, eating a box of popcorns and thoroughly enjoying it.
See, I still do that when I'm with my girlfriend. That's no different from
She
me.
sits on the other side of the room.
But no, that's brilliant. Are there any, you mentioned quickly, are there any films that you've worked or TV shows that you've worked on that you haven't watched?
I think I always try and see them, just to see how, when they've edited my work, how it looks on screen. I think I do quite a lot on BBC Casualty, and I think there's probably some of those episodes that I haven't seen. But I've just recently put together a brand new show reel, which is on my website, and I had to find a lot of pieces from Casualty. So they sent me footage of episodes that I'd worked on, and so I got to see it. Didn't necessarily put it on the show reel, but I got to see it all. But my favourite film of all time has to be Top Gun. I just love Top Gun, the flying sequences, and I've seen it probably about 45 times.
Wow.
Maybe
Wow.
more. But
Fantastic.
I just love it. And if it comes on the TV now, I'll sit and watch it. I loved it. It's fabulous. It inspired me to fly. And eventually I got my pilot's license, my private pilot's license. So, and that was inspiration from Top Gun.
Well, I'm sure you're looking forward to the
That's
new one
amazing.
coming, I think, next year now.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh gosh, yes, I can't wait. So, and would you believe you said there's a film or a TV show you've never seen? The answer to that is no. But an actor I have never worked with, and I am absolutely devastated, is Tom Cruise. He was in Top Gun, of course. He'll be in the new one. I think is amazing. I've never worked with him or met him.
And the Mission Impossible, surely the budget that they've got would mean that it would just be a dream as a stunt coordinator to work on something like that, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. My son's working on Mission Impossible. So I'm very happy.
You're living it through him.
Yes. Who would have thought? I supported him to get there, and he
Damn him.
I did.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, Abbi, we've come to the end of our time, unfortunately. We could have been here for a lot longer, I feel. But thank you so much for coming on today.
It's my pleasure.
It's been amazing. Thank you very much indeed.
I loved it. I can chat about what I do for a living, stunts, all day long, because it's a real passion, and I love it. But thank you for having me. It was fabulous.
No worries.
You're
Thank you very
welcome.
much for
Thank
coming.
you.